This is the Vortex Razor HD Gen 3, a 1:10 by 24 first focal plane LPVO, and Vortex's flagship LPVO, targeted to the military, law enforcement, and competitive shooting market. They boast that it is a true one-power optic and has real daylight bright illumination. But does it live up to the marketing hype and price? Let's find out. The Vortex comes in a rather large box for a scope that doesn't come with a mount, but don't worry, I'm not going to show you a boring unboxing. Instead, I'm just going to show you what you get in the package. You don't get a mount, but you do get a sunshade and a throw lever, so that's something. This is the Vortex Razor HD Gen 3, and this is one of the most highly regarded LPVOs out on the market. Comes with lens caps. These aren't covers, these are just to cover the front and the back end to keep the glass pristine during transport, but these are quite flimsy, not really useful for out in the field. They will get lost very quickly. But let's take a look at this. This is quite a pretty piece of glass here. It has that very recognizable signature burnt bronze finish on the body here, and it just looks really nicely put together. It is a relatively short, compact LPVO, just about 9 inches long. Now it does come with a sunshade, so that would extend the front quite a bit by about 2 inches. So that would put it more along the typical LPVO length, but without that sunshade, it is pretty compact. It is a 34mm tube, so it does look a bit more fat-amy than a lot of other LPVOs out there. Front has a threading for a kill flash should you want it, and of course to attach your sunshade. And the back is a nice big ocular lens, so this will give you a nice wide unobstructed field of view when you're using it. Now, it has an illuminator, and this is a little unusual. It's unique that it is a pull to lock or unlock your illuminator, and it has 11 levels of illumination, and they are at 11. It is quite bright, and I don't know if you can see that here. It is, I would say, red dot bright at 11. So much so that a lot of people won't even run at 11 because it just blows out too much. But we'll see that in greater detail out on the field when we look through the glass here. But that is a nice little feature, that the illuminator knob is lockable by just pressing that down, so it's locked in place. And it's powered by a single CR2032 battery that's under this cap. You can access it with a coin or a flathead screwdriver. And let's take a look at these turrets. And these are cap turrets, but nice, broad, wide turrets. And let's listen. Ah, nice. Not only are they loud, but they are very tactile positive, with no slop at all. And these are resettable, very small torque screw there. But once you have your reticle zeroed in, you can unscrew that, pop it off, lay it back down to reset the zero, and it is a 1/4 MOA per click. So that's nice. That gives you a lot of fine adjustment. And let's listen to the windage. Slightly more muted, but still quite audible, and no slop, or maybe just the barest hint of slop on that windage, but nothing really to write home about. It's definite when you index to the next number on that adjustment. And again, it's a 1/4 MOA per click. And I should just go back to that illuminator for a second, just to, yeah, soft, but definitely tactile positive, and definite when you make an adjustment on that illuminator. And let's just take a look at this magnification ring. Ooh, butter smooth. That is butter smooth. And it does come with a throw lever, but this groove cutout pattern here is a nice aggressive pattern. Gives you a nice texture, nice tread where to give you a good grip, whether you're got wet hands, or even gloves, though probably with gloves on you'd want to throw a lever. And let's just take a look at this ocular diopter here. Wow, that pulls out quite a bit. Not butter smooth, but pretty darn smooth. And you can hear it more than you can feel any rubbing there. Make sure you adjust your diopter when you get your LPVO, because a lot of folks will complain about excessive fisheyeing or what have you. It's because they haven't adjusted their diopter properly. Alright, this is quite a nice LPVO, and it's obvious to me, just looking at this and feeling this, why this is so highly regarded. But, you know, this is not a cheap LPVO by any stretch. We're looking through the Vortex Razor at its lowest magnification of 1 power to get our best overall image through the glass in terms of color, contrast, detail, sharpness. And if you look through, compare the image inside the glass versus outside of the scope, you can see just how accurate it is, and it is quite sharp. It's like looking through a freshly clean pair of glasses. If you know what that means, if you wear glasses, you know what I'm talking about. Now, as we move this around, we're looking for any distortions in the image that would imply the kind of fisheyeing that can often be the case with an LPVO. And you can kind of see that here. The white car in the foreground there, it looks a little bit smaller inside of the scope than it does in the real world. And that makes me think that this 1 power is actually less than 1 power, because if I try to match this up, let me just dial this up to like 1.2 on its magnification dial, which looks a little bit closer to 1:1 to me. And if we look at this telephone pole here to the right, with a lower quality optic that has a lot more distortion, that straight telephone pole would look much more bowed out. It looks pretty good at this like 1.2. Looks pretty accurate, but you can see the difference here. If I change it back to 1.1 on the dial here, there's a little bit of bending, slightly, very slightly, but you can see that there's actually an offset now between the image of the telephone pole inside of the scope versus outside of the scope, versus when I had it at like 1.2, which is right here. It's much more in line. So, yeah. There we go. So you can see that. So I'm not sure what's going on there. If you happen to know, if you have any more experience with optics, let me know in the comments, but I'm just showing you what I'm seeing here. Now, as we increase magnification, we are also magnifying all the faults in the glass. So let's bring this up to about halfway, which is 5 power on the dial here. And let me just adjust the focus on this camera, and we're still getting a lot of good detail here. You can see all the branches and leaves in the foreground there, and you also notice that the reticle has changed in size because this is a first focal plane reticle. And we bring this up to its maximum of 10 power. We are looking at the top of this hill here, which is 1,400 yards away. And despite that distance and the atmospheric haze that we're getting in between us, we've lost some contrast, but we're still seeing a lot of good detail through this glass. And there's just a bare hint of chromatic aberration along the tree line as it meets the sky there, but not bad for an LPVO. This is a pretty sharp image for, well, an LPVO. You can make out there's a trail marker sign there just below and to the right of the center crosshairs. That is a 36-inch sign on top of an 8-foot pole, which is a good proxy for an IPSC target at this distance. Now, let's move this reticle up into the sky here so we can get a closer, clearer look at the design of it. And it is a very nice long-distance reticle with a Christmas tree with both elevation and wind holds, but a nice set of subtensions. And in the area above the T center reticle there, in would be the sky above your horizon line, there is a ranging ladder. That is a diagram that allows you to get an estimated range to your target based on the shoulder width of your target. So that's a nice place to put it, in my opinion. All right, let me bring down the magnification, and you can see how the reticle is scaling to the magnification, and we're going to bring it back to 1 power here. And let's just see how that reticle looks like. It's a closer object. Now, it is a very fine reticle for long-distance shooting, but the problem with fine reticles is that they're easy to lose in a cluttered background, especially under recoil if you're, simulating it here. If you're shooting and trying to find your center reticle again, it can be a bit challenging. So that's why having an illuminated reticle is helpful. Got 1, 2, and these are the 2 night vision compatible settings. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that is quite bright. So bright that it's actually kind of blowing out the detail on that center reticle. And even against a brightly lit wall there, it is still visible. And even, let's bring this up into the sky there. Yeah, that is still visible against the white sky, the clouds in the sky there. So this is truly daylight bright. I'd even say red dot bright. So yeah, it certainly lives up to its reputation for a very bright reticle. Next, let's take it out to the range and see how it does there. I've set up some optical reference targets, and while I head back to the 100-yard benches to set up, now would be a great time for you to take a moment and hit that like button and the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to this channel already. It doesn't cost anything, it's absolutely free. All it does is you're letting the algorithm know that these are the kind of video reviews that you enjoy watching. And I'm curious, let me know what you think of Vortex and the Razor HD so far. Leave me a comment. Alright, we're looking through the Vortex Razor at 100 yards, and we're looking at it at 1 power to get our best overall image, and we're going to zoom in to see what this looks like at 10 power from this distance. And this looks quite sharp. This is where the Razor really makes a name for itself, well, justifies its premium price for having such a clear, sharp image. I mean, this glass is amazing at this distance. I can make out, even with my naked eye, all the way, probably halfway down the scale on the resolution chart. Unfortunately, though the image is nice and bright and sharp, it does have quite noticeable chromatic aberration. You can see that as a purple fringe along the edges of the targets. Alright, let's look at these same targets from 50 yards. Alright. We are at 50 yards now with the Vortex Razor, and let's bring this up to its maximum of 10 power and take a look at those reference targets again. We're looking at a still image from the video so that we're not distracted by any heat shimmer, and we can concentrate on these reference targets. Now, the first thing I notice when looking at this image is the chromatic aberration. It is quite evident here. You can see it as a purple fringe along the left side of the target backing. Now, to be honest, this is a bit disappointing for what is Vortex's top-of-the-line LPVO. Despite that, the image is still quite bright, sharp, and detailed. Looking at the color chart on the top left, the colors are fairly vibrant. You can even make out individual gray squares in the gradation bar that runs vertically along both edges of the color chart. The image is sharp from the center all the way to the outer edge, and you can even make out some details in the shadows. You can see the texture of bullet splashes on the backstop. Looking at the brown paper target on the bottom left, we can easily make out the bullet strikes on the reactive sticker target in the center, but more importantly, we can also make out 2 individual .22 caliber bullet holes below that sticker target. Next, let's take a look at the US Air Force optical resolution chart on the bottom right. Through the camera, I can make out both horizontal and vertical lines down to element 5 in group -1 on the chart, and with my naked eye, I dare say I can make it down to element 6. And that is outstanding. In live fire testing, the scope held 0, which is not surprising. Unilluminated at 1 power, the reticle was a little hard to reacquire between shots, but once illuminated, it was like shooting a red dot. Alright, the Vortex Razor. Does it really live up to all the hype? Yeah, actually it does. I'm not going to kid about this. This thing is amazing. I'm looking at this, looking through at 1 power. This thing is so crisp and clear. It's like looking through a freshly cleaned window. It's brighter and more clear looking through this at 1 power than with your naked eye. And that's one thing I want to address. In the footage we saw when we did the test, we saw the objects inside at 1 power were smaller, which is really surprising. Perhaps somebody out there with a little more optics knowledge, Dark Lord, if you're watching this, please leave me a comment about that. The other thing I'd ask to get a little bit more clarity on, pardon the pun, or maybe intentionally pun, 1 to 10 power LPVOs tend to all have fairly tight and unforgiving eye boxes, and this one is better than most, but it is a tighter, less forgiving eye box than, say, the 1 to 6 version, which actually a friend of mine, we brought both of ours, well, I brought this one, and this is a loaner, it's not mine, but he brought his 1 to 6 Razor out to the range one day, and his 1 to 6 at 1 power had a much more forgiving eye box than the 1 to 10. So that just says that there's something about having more magnification in your LPVO. The trade-off is you're going to have a much tighter and less forgiving eye box. That said, this is compared to other 1 to 10s that I've tested out, this is actually pretty good. The one other nitpick I'd have about this is the reticle. The EBR9 reticle that this has is an excellent reticle at 10 power. It's a great long distance reticle with Christmas trees and really nice thin stadia lines, so it doesn't obscure your target. But first focal plane reticles, once you change your magnification, go down to 1, that nice reticle at 10 suddenly becomes a very thin and small T-style reticle. Which can get more easily lost in a cluttered background or with dynamic movement. Now it gets around that by having a really super bright illumination, perhaps one of the brightest in the business in terms of just how bright it is. And you probably don't even want to run this at 10 or 11 because at that brightness the dot actually just sort of blows out and you lose detail on it, so you actually get a much better aim point at a lower intensity. And this is truly daylight bright, truly red dot bright. So maybe my comments about the rather thin and small reticle at 1 power are kind of superfluous because you're really just using this like a red dot at 1 power. You're just looking for the dot and aiming for that. So yeah, all right, that's the case. Now, I got a chance to run this with a couple of mags, and of course, not surprisingly, it held 0. But I wasn't able to do a long-term durability test on this because I have to return this. This is actually a loaner. You just have to assume, as I do, that this is a Vortex, and Vortex has one of the best warranties in the business. So that, even if you come to a problem, and it's a very forgiving warranties by the way, so includes damage, that Vortex will make right by it. Now let's get to the 500-pound gorilla in the room, or in this case, the 2,500-pound gorilla, because that's the price of one of these bad boys. Well beyond the budget of most shooters out there, me included. I've got 2 school-age kids, so yeah, a $2,500 optic is not going to sit well with my family budget. But if you have the means to get one of these, I highly recommend it. If you are interested, I'll include product links to the cheapest place I could find it online in my full written review at moondogindustries.com. So definitely use those links, check out that article, and help support this channel. And I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I want to thank Monstrum Tactical for lending this to me. I've got to send this back. Anyway, thanks for watching. You be safe out there. Moondog out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.